Hey everyone, sorry I'm a little late. It was an interesting day today. I had a whole day of conferences and then I had to write an opinion letter. So it was a busy day and I'm so glad to be here with all of you. I'm Deborah Hamilton. You're here at the MAAP community call. And tonight we're going to talk about something that I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday because it was in the UK that it was being held. But it was a global um, animal welfare discussion on how to work locally to see what you can do to create emergency plans for pets. So I thought this was right up my alley for the MAP plan because I tell all of my attendees, hi, Jeffrey, hi, Michelle. I tell all my attendees to make a MAP plan, which means make a plan, appoint caregivers, address the needs of your pet, and publish it. However, we touched upon it, and Connie will support me in this. We've touched upon working in your community to make sure there are emergency plans within your community to go somewhere with your pet if something happens. However, we don't do a whole program on it. So tonight, that's what I'm going to do because the welfare program I talked about was global. There were people from all over the world. It was people from India and Pakistan and Russia and Ukraine and Australia for the fires this summer. It was about everyone talking about not only our wonderful pets that we have to make a plan for, but animals in general. Like, what can we do to provide a safe place for them to go? I often talk about the people who own exotic pets or horses. Those are animals that you can't move really easily. So when you make a plan, you really have to make a plan that creates that uh, staging where you can go with them so that you can keep them alive. If you have a bird, if you have a lizard, if you have a snake, these are animals that really need a special kind of temperature, need a special kind of environment. If you walk your dog out into the snow or rain, they're going to get wet, they're going to get cold, but they're not going to die. If you walk your snake or your bird out in the rain and they get a draft, they could die. So these are things that I really want everyone to pay attention to. And we're going to talk more about this tonight to see how many of you know about let's start locally, what your local government has in place for the care of pets in the event of an emergency, and what you can do to really check in and make sure that they do something. So if they're not doing anything, then it's your wonderful initiative that will start them to think about it, because you're not the only one in their locality that needs help with their pet if something were to happen. So before I do anything else, I'm going to check in with everyone. I'm going to start with Connie. How's everything out in California?
Well, speaking of natural disasters, we are right in the throes of what traditionally has been wildfire season, although that has seemed to extend pretty much year round now. But so far, so good. We have had oscillations in temperature, but that's going from very hot to very cold, and the occasional new tropical storm thrown in about a month ago. But that's typical this time of year. But I do want to talk later, Deborah, when you're ready, about what the state of California, what our state legislature has just passed in this legislative session, and Governor Newsom has just signed into law as of October 14th on emergency preparedness, two good bills that originated in our assembly, and also what we in Los Angeles County do as well. So at any rate, I will pass the baton to other folks, but I do want to comment on what we're
Fabulous.
doing here in California.
Make sure you send Rose and I the links to those if you have them so we can put them in the show notes. So people
Okay.
can read them and maybe bring them to their local government to use them as a guide. Hey, Kieran, how are you? How are things going?
Hi Debbie. Hi Connie. How are things? Right. Well, we're in the rainy season as usual. I think the place is called Ireland, and the only natural disaster we had was a storm last night, which cut out the electricity for most of the day.
Wow.
So So, but
But that would have really impacted someone with lizards or snakes.
right.
No heat, no heat, no electricity. You have to have a generator or
Oh, I see.
battery
Yes.
backup. Yeah, for their heat.
Yes.
So these are things that like they're really inconvenient to us. Although not being able to get on the internet's not that bad, but you can always go in your car. But if you have a snake or you have a bird, those animals really need the continuous warmth, especially in rainy Ireland, which I remember well, not being warm when it's rainy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle, welcome. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and who's your pet?
Hi there. I am from Scappoose, which is a little north of Portland, Oregon.
Great.
And
Welcome.
thank you. I work for Meals on Wheels people. And so we're creating a new pet program. And the short and long-term planning is something that we want to include in our program for our clients. And so I'm just in the research phase of that, and I stumbled across you, so here I am.
Oh, we're so glad you're here and anything
Yeah.
I can do to help because it's sort of my mantra that people should keep pets with them if they can, but
Yeah.
they do need an heir and a spare. So the MAAP stands for Make a Plan, Appoint Caregivers, Address the Needs of Your Pet, and then publish that plan so that you, Michelle, know what Mrs. McGillicuddy wants to do with her cat if something happens to her, because you're one of those people who are in and out of the house, you know, every day, once a week, whatever the delivery is. So I'm so glad. Please try to catch up with me offline. I'd be happy to do anything or help you with anything because it really is very important to make sure our seniors keep their seniors or acquire seniors because seniors and seniors work really well. And it makes them get up in the morning. It makes them move around. You know, we all know the benefits of pets. We all know, you know, that things happen and then pets need a soft landing. So fabulous, Michelle. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you come again. We're a fun group. And we talk about all sorts of things. And you might check out with your locale, which you probably have, what in fact they have in place to help people plan for their pets or take care of their pets. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Susan, how are you? How's Maggie, the Wonder Nipper?
Hey, Deborah. Maggie is, barking like usual, and I'm sorry to tell you what we're back to using the trazodone with Maggie. And
no, that's good. She's happier and you're happier.
Yeah, I feel terrible though using it, but it felt like my sanity was, I was losing it. So
well, we have to keep our sanity, that's for sure. So, it's always a balancing act, making sure that you're able to, live with the dog and the dog's able to live with you. So you're doing the best you can because Maggie has been a challenge. She really has been a challenge.
An unbelievable challenge. And
you stuck with it. So bravo. Bravo.
Yeah, I love the dog. I mean, I love her when she's sweet, and she can be sweet. It's just she can be awful as well. So
I know I own two of those, by the way. I'll tell you a little story before I go to Stephanie. So Mariah, we're going to call her Springbok now. So I have two Irish setters. One's named Juniper, the other's named Mariah. And Mariah now jumps from a standstill over a 3-foot fence, which is my neighbor's beautiful brick fence. And she comes right back when you call her, except that she leaves and you're like, you turn around and she's gone and you're like, what? Okay. So we've called her Springbok, and I actually put up an X pen by this low fence. So I thought I would outsmart her. Not only did she go over the 4-foot fence next to it, because it gradually goes down, it gets to 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot. But she came back when I called over the 3-foot fence and said, oh, there's an X pen here. So she jumped back over the fence, went around the X pen and came over the 4-foot fence. And she said, here I am, Mom. And I'm like, okay, the invisible fence collar is going on tomorrow. It is not fun, but that's what's going to happen.
Oh, no.
All the gray hair I just colored out of my head was Mariah. So I'm glad you're here, Susan. Stephanie, how's Yoda?
Yoda's doing really well.
Great. And how are you doing?
Also good.
Fabulous.
So much.
So I hope you're here to hear about the local things that we can do, because making sure that we have something to do with our pets is so important. If natural disaster comes. So I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, Deborah.
Hey, Jeffrey, tell us if you want who you are and where you're from. I think
Before, I was not able to attend in the last meeting, though.
you've been here
In
before. Yes,
Bloomfield,
I thought I
Connecticut.
was.
okay.
I
And
have
what's
3
your
German
dog's
Shepherds.
name? I usually remember dogs' names better.
3 dogs,
Have
9, 6.
Perfect. I know. So that's why we're here today,
Those
because
are
there are a lot of local groups, especially post Hurricane Katrina, that have created, well, right after Hurricane Katrina, a lot of things were created. But since Hurricane Katrina, and that was like so many years ago, I can't even believe it. It seems like yesterday, but it wasn't. It seems to have fallen off everybody's to-do list. So I want to make sure that at least this group finds a way to check with the local authorities in your neck of the woods and say, what have we got in place for emergency evacuations? God forbid we need it, fire, flood, famine, pestilence, whatever it is that comes our way. What do we have in place? And the best way to do that, when you go to your local mayor or you go to the town clerk, the best way to do that is to make sure you say to them, what can I do to help? Not just that you walk in and say, what are you doing for me? But rather, what can I do to help? So last but not least is Kathy. Hi, Kathy. How's everybody at your house?
Good, fine.
Connie, tell me a little bit more, because Governor Newsom has been really on the cutting edge of making these plans for the evacuation of pets, because quite frankly, pets are what are keeping people from ever leaving in a disaster. I mean, I don't know how many people here would leave their pets. And Michelle, we didn't ask you, do you have any pets, or you were just sorry?
I do have pets. I have I have a dog, 2 cats, and six chickens.
Oh, wonderful. Well, the chickens would be the hard ones to, ferret up and put in the car.
Yeah.
They get in. The dog and the cats might not necessarily care for that. However, the cats will be in a carrier and the dog hopefully will leave them alone while he sits in the front seat, right? I mean, that's the way it goes. Oh, good. And we always get their names. What's your dog's name? Oh, look at him.
This is Romeo.
Oh, what's his name?
Romeo.
Romeo. Is he a Pom?
Yes.
He's so cute. He's such
my
a
work friend.
I know. I have 2 work friends who aren't really well behaved, but it is great. So, Connie,
Yes.
once again, what Governor Newsom did, because he really is on the cutting edge, and this gives us some ideas to go to our local people and say, "What about this? What about that?" And thanks for putting it in the chat. So, if anybody wants links to the new legislation in California, just pop on the chat. And what you can do is you can open it now and then go back to it after, because it'll open in your browser and then you can go back to it later. I never know how to save it, so that's why I tell people to do that.
I have dropped the total bill, everything you ever wanted to know but were afraid to ask, from the website, which is officially from the California State Legislature. It's called Leg Info, California Legislative Information. And it has all kinds of wonderful bill information, including the full text, the votes out of committee, the floor votes in each chamber, the history, the bill analysis from the state legislative analyst's office, et cetera, et cetera. On the top of each bill, it will say, the first thing you'll see is enrolled on September 18th. That means fully passed out of both houses and sent to the governor's desk. And these have been signed, because Governor Newsom signed thousands of bills that came at him. And he is all done as of about a week to 10 days ago.
Great.
And the legislature is in recess until the beginning of next year. But the first bill, AB 1215, and AB stands for Assembly Bill, SB stands for Senate Bill, and it, of course, indicates the originating house. And AB 1215, which is the first bill that I dropped in, is really, I think, it's a really path-breaking bill, because it has to do with not only homeless people, but also victims of domestic violence. And as we all know, many times victims of domestic violence, who tend to be women, and children do not leave their abusive partners, spouses, whoever, because they're afraid of leaving their pet. And research has also shown, of course, that people who abuse people abuse pets. So, these domestic violence victims will stay in a bad environment just to save the pet. Well, AB 1215 addresses all that. It allows victims of domestic violence and also homeless people on the street to take their animals with them and not have to either surrender them to animal care and control or to a rescue group, but they can stay with their animals, which is wonderful. The second bill, AB 781, has to do with the subject of tonight's talk, natural disasters. And we are the capital here. We've always kidded about, we have 4 seasons here in California: fires, floods, landslides, and earthquakes. And now we can add a 5th, tropical storms, to those. Previously, and this is in the wake of Hurricane Katrina years ago in New Orleans, you had to leave your animal behind if you were going into an emergency shelter. Now that is not the case. You can take your animal, assuming that it's fairly small. Now, for larger animals, such as horses and other livestock, the various counties, and we have 58 of them in California, the various counties always make provisions for you to get your animals out. In fact, in 2009, we had a horrible fire here in Metro Los Angeles called the Station Fire that burned hundreds of thousands of acres of national forest and state forest. And there were horses that had to be evacuated, and even sheep. I was taking herding lessons at the time up in the North San Fernando Valley, and my instructor, who's an AKC herding judge, had to get out 40 special training sheep. These are what are known as dog broke sheep, which are strictly used for training herding dogs. And she had to go in twice with her trailer to get out all the sheep. And some of them had lung damage because the smoke inhalation was so awful. But she was able to save them and get them out to a ranch about 30 or 40 minutes away. So, and in Orange County last year and the year before, all the fairgrounds down there, when they had terrible fires down there, were evacuating horses, cattle, sheep, goats, you name it. So typically the counties already have beautiful provisions in place for dealing with livestock as well as domestic animals. So we're very put together here in California. And I will say that in Tropical Storm Hillary, which was a real surprise to everybody, we were so prepared. Los Angeles City, Mayor Bass was sending out, social media, newspaper, broadcast news, you name it. Everybody knew exactly what to do. You could sign up on a website to get alerts on your cell phone. Same thing with the county. The Board of Supervisors went right into action. They did the same thing, and they partnered city and county together. So there were 0 fatalities. People stayed off the roads, and there was very little property damage, and really no animal life was lost. So I am very proud and happy to say that if you want a model to use in your municipality or your state, look at California, because we got it nailed.
I'm so glad you shared that, because it was so interesting to me to get up. It was Tuesday morning, not Monday morning, at 6 a.m. and hear what they're doing globally for the animals that are not the typical dog, cat. So birds are pretty usual as well. It really is up to the owners to figure out and to get out early, not late. Like, don't try to get down the hill when everything's going crazy. I put the YouTube link. I think that's where the recording is for the program that I listened to on Tuesday on global preparedness. What we need to do as a community, so you're making your plan. So part of your plan needs to be what is available to me in my neighborhood? What's available to me in my state? Because you really want to know what you can avail yourself of. Because if you can avail yourself of a vet school that will shelter your horse, or something that, a farm that has already volunteered for the state to move animals there, if you know that before you need to know that, right? You will be able to understand, okay, if I trailer my horses on Friday, the storm is due on Saturday, I'll already be there set up, everybody will be settled. And even if the storm doesn't wash out my place, the horses will be safe. And I'm glad I took the time to get them away. Because Connie, you and I both talked about all the horses on the beach in California when the fires came. People were just driving them down to the beach, to the water. And I understood. I've been out in California several times giving the MAAP plan to these lovely communities. You have the airplane communities. Well, this is the horse communities where everybody has a horse. Oh, good. Connecticut has this organized. Great for sharing. Thank you, Jeffrey. Yeah, if anybody has any information for their city state, put it in the chat, because Rose will share that with all the other listeners. It is really important that, if people have these animals and they all live together, that they work as a team, because all of them said, well, we all know each other's horses and we can all try to get them out. And I said, okay, so how many hitches do you have on your car? And they go, well, I have one hitch because I only have one trailer. I said, well, I get that. I said, but if your neighbor is at work or down the hill or whatever, maybe an hour away, and the fire's coming and they're going to shut the roads, even if you have a Prius, which a lot of people in California have, put a hitch on it. I'm sure that the person whose horses you save, pulling them with your Prius, if any lasting damage happens to your Prius, they'll help you fix it because you saved their horses, right? So I said to them, how many of you would, spend $300 and put a second hitch on your car? And they all raised their hands. And I said, yeah, because the horses know you. You can drive, there's two of you at home, you can drive 4 horses down instead of 2. Because once you get to the bottom of the hill, you're not getting back up that hill to get somebody else's horses. So that's
and in that vein, Deborah, my herding instructor had a trailer that would accommodate 36 sheep. She had 40, and so she got.
They used a lot of shoehorns.
She got the first bunch down the hill, and then she came back to get the second bunch. And the road was still passable, but the highway patrol and the LA County Sheriff were standing there and saying, ma'am, you can't go back up to your ranch. And she said, you don't understand. I've still got 10 head of sheep up there, because she took 30 out the first time.
Right.
And she said, I'm going in. And so they said, and she's a very tough lady. And so they said, you do so at your own peril. And she said, I'm willing to take the risk. And she got him out.
Yeah.
But you've got to be aware of how big your trailer is and how many animals you got.
Well, most people usually, there are some that have trailers that carry 5 or 6 horses, but others have just the 2. If you only have 3 horses, you only carry 2. So it really is important to make sure that you chat with everybody, you set this up. But tonight, I really wanted to stress that go to your local town and just ask the people who do the planning. Say, listen, do we have anything in place in the event I have to leave with my horses, my lizards, my dogs, my cats, so that they can tell you, yes, here's our plan. We all go to the high school. We all do this, and say, okay, fine. So what would I need to bring to the high school if I bring my horses? And they would probably say to you, oh, shit, we didn't really think of horses. Or they'd say, oh, no, we have Joe from down the street bringing a bunch of round pens, and he's going to set them up, zip tie them together. And, the horses will be at a big round pen. For everybody will get a round pen, or whatever they do. So I'm just making everyone aware that, if you're going to help someone make a plan, or you're going to make a plan for yourself, which all of you should have been starting or have finished the MAAP plan. You've already made the plan, which says, this is what I want to happen to my dogs if something were to happen to me and I couldn't take care of them short or long term. Because the last thing you want to do is have your pet be taken from you, and get better. And then the pet is gone. You really don't want that to happen. So you need to make sure you have a short-term and a long-term plan. So, this person, dog walker, vet tech, neighbor will take the dog for the 2 or 3 days I have to go in the hospital to get my hip replaced. But then when I get home, I'll be fine, and the neighbor will help me. They'll let the dog in and out, whatever. But you have to make that plan, because sometimes family comes in and decides for you, against your knowledge or will, the dog is really too much for you now. We're going to place it. And believe me, I'm sure Michelle will share that if people's dogs aren't with them and they're older and they come home from the hospital, it is traumatic for them. It is completely traumatic for them. So unless you help them as their children, which children don't necessarily do with their parents, but they should. And if you're like me, older than dirt, you should do it for yourself. Make sure you have a plan that says, if my kids can't take my pets, then I want Susie Smith and Jenny Jones and Robbie Burke to take my dogs. And they're right here. This is where they live. The dogs cats know them, and you wanted to take it. And all of them know. So Sally's not on tonight, but Sally would raise her hand and say, and make sure you tell Sally Smith and Jenny Jones and Bobby Burke that in fact you have them as people who are going to take your pets. Because don't presume somebody can take your pets. And then, of course, so it's make a plan, appoint caregivers, which is the most important piece and the most difficult piece, because you got to find those caregivers. And you have to check your caregivers every year. Because I moved from a house with 4 acres to a house with 1 acre. Can I take all the dogs in my life back? I would. That's not a problem. However, not as easily as if I had 4 acres, but I would take them. But some people say, oh my God, I mean, I can tell you, my sons who love my dogs, they do. One has a cat. My dogs do not know or like cats, so he's off the list. And the other lives in a no pet building. So I'm sitting there going, what were you thinking? If something happens to me, you can't even take. I take them anyway, Mom. I said they would throw you out of the apartment building. And then what would you do? I'd find another apartment. Well, we should have thought of that before you rented. I'm just saying. So tonight's plan for everyone to take away is, remember to make your MAAP plan, make a plan, appoint caregivers, address the needs of your pet. Please God, don't leave your care of your pet in your brain. It really doesn't work well for others. You need to write it down. So if your dog or cat or bird or horse can't eat a certain food, is afraid of lightning and thunder, bites the mailman, doesn't like certain kinds of people. I mean, because they are sometimes like that. Make sure people know. I know if Sally was here, she always has to remind everyone who might walk Roxy that if a white dog walks by, it could be killed, because Roxy, for some reason, hates white dogs. I have no idea. Poor Michelle's palm would be wide enough, and she would go for it. So, you have to tell people that. It's an important piece of information. So as you're going out into the world, everyone, I want you to please, this week, this month, before Thanksgiving, how about that? I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to walk down to Eastern North Carolina's town hall, and I'm going to say, what do we have in place here for the care of pets in the case of an emergency? Because we get hurricanes here. We get really bad hurricanes here. So I really should know what they have set up so that I can make sure my dogs are safe. And I've already made my plans for my dogs with people who are local and people who are far. So I want you to do the same. So make sure you can call them. You can go online and just scan them and see. I'm sure Jeff did that, or else he knew about the one that says, I'll be right there, Connie, that says, this is what you do for your plan. Just make sure you take the time to do that, because it could save your life and it can save your pet's life. Because if you're going to stay with your pet, then you could have gotten out. I'd be sad, because both of you might lose your life. Yes, Connie.
I just wanted to mention that in California, as a matter of fact, to underscore what you're saying about go down to your city hall, in all the local municipalities, not just Los Angeles City, there are disaster preparedness teams already in place. And in fact, some of them already have well-established pet disaster preparedness teams. And I have actually participated in training programs with my dogs for the city of Torrance. And there's also one for my local city, the city of Rancho Palos Verdes. So do check out with your city that not only A, do they have a disaster preparedness team, but B, if they do, is there a special pet team? Because chances are they do exist. Or if not, start one.
Start one. That's exactly right. Because if they don't, I swear to you, if you walk in and say, how can I help you? Then they will be so glad you're there. And I know none of us have time to do any of that, but our pets are depending on us to create a plan for the care, so they have a soft landing. And if we don't do it, who will? Don't always wait for the next person to do it. Make sure you do it. Like I said, don't wait for someone else to write the plan about your pet. Make sure you make the plan about your pet. And make sure you go down to your town, your village, your square, whatever you have, and ask them. And then, we have enough information here every week. Come back and ask us, what am I supposed to do now that they appointed me the emergency plan person, volunteer? What should I do? Come back. We will help you walk through it. I have tons of information that I can send you on how to make that plan. So don't hesitate to do it. We're all in this together. Every town is just a small town looking for someone to help them take care of their pets in the case of an emergency. So before we go, last thoughts of everyone. I'm going to start with you, Stephanie. How was it tonight? What are your thoughts about tonight?
I think it's great that we have these community meetings. I think it's awesome that it's on Zoom, so it's really accessible. And I'm glad that I try to tune in and have made a MAAP care plan that I put inside a bin that's sort of see-through and kind of has all of Yoda's food and different kinds of resources. So it's kind of all together.
Make sure you have that 3x5 card somewhere where somebody can see where your bin is. You don't want them to have to look for the bin.
Yes.
Great. Perfect. Awesome. Oh, I'm so glad, Stephanie. So Yoda is all set. Susan, how about you?
Well, I was just thinking about something that happened in Washington, D.C. over the summer. There was a torrential downpour of rain and 10 dogs drowned in a doggy daycare center. And it was just a horrible event, and the news people were talking about it for days. But you wouldn't think that in our nation's capital, so little forethought would have been given to this. Other dogs were saved, but 10 dogs were, trying to get out of their pens, and they couldn't. They were just not able to save those 10 dogs. And
well, obviously they're not members of our community, because they would have known that we would have said to them, you need to make sure you have a plan. And even if the water came, you can't presume that that's not going to happen to you. You're taking care of someone else's dog. You really need to have an escape hatch somewhere for the dogs to be able to get out of a situation. I know that's always the hardest thing for me when horses drowned in pens because people didn't let them out of the pens because they didn't want them to run free. And I always say the horses know where to go. Let them go. I mean, God forbid they get hit by a car. We don't want that to happen. However, they usually know where to go to get out of danger. It's an instinct. It's a thing. It's a thing for them. They know. Connie, yes.
Again, state of California, we have those ordinances in place. If you have in fact, I've worked this as the AKC legislative liaison for my obedience club. If you have any kind of an organization that trains or boards or houses animals, or even if you're having an event, like for instance, an obedience trial. I'm right in the throes of that right now as my trial co-chair. You have to have a disaster plan for those animals, an emergency preparedness plan, and it has to be submitted to the local government entity that governs your organization and licenses your organization. So again, check with your local municipality and go to your city council meeting And, you know, if such an ordinance does not exist, get it passed.
And if you're leaving your dog at a kennel or a doggy daycare or a groomer, ask to see their disaster plan.
You
If
bet.
not, you know, they might. So some people fire people for asking questions, right, Susan? They don't take your dog because you ask questions about things.
Right.
But you really need to ask those questions, because if in fact there's a flood or fire or whatever, what are they going to do with the 36 dogs they have during the day? Do they have mobile crating to get the dogs and cats away from where they need to get the dogs and cats away from? Or can they get them up high? Or do they have a sprinkling system? Or what are they depending on? You know, you have to ask those questions. I remember looking for a shelter, not shelter, a kennel for my dogs here in Morehead City, and that one of them had a clip on a gate. And I said, you got to have clips on gates because dogs are notorious for opening gates and going born free. Oh, we never put clips on gates. I said, well, thank you very much. This was a lovely tour. And I left, and I said to them, you know, you really should put clips on gates because these people are relying on you to make sure their pets are safe. Kathy, what did you learn today? Oh, your head hurts, I know.
No, the place that I board that you're familiar with has you've given me some questions to ask them. I know that they have backup generators, but I never thought to ask them about what they would do
in case of a fire or flood.
If there was, I don't even know.
Yeah,
wow.
We'll ask, and they should want us to ask, and they should want us to maybe help them figure it out. If they, you know, we're not trying to be a pain in the Heineken. We really are helping them be their best. So that's really important. Michelle, what did you take away? You're new. We're piling on all this information. You're probably like, holy crap, I'm never coming back.
No, I'm really excited to have found you. I think this is amazing, and I pulled up all the links, and I'm going to go through all the stuff and take a look-see. And
well, tell your friends who have pets, because we're here every first and third Wednesday of the month, because people think it's really a daunting task to make a plan for the care of your pets. And I don't know, the guys on here will probably tell you it's a lot of fun. We talk about all sorts of things you never think about. And you really need to make that plan if you love your babies. I mean, Romeo's depending on you.
Yeah, he is. And it's definitely given me that foresight. Like, oh, I need to do that too. You know, like for work, I'm doing it for work. And then it kind of
but tonight, when you get off the phone, just make sure you put a 3x5 card somewhere easy to find that says, in case of an emergency, do not remove Romeo from this house. You know, if you're taken off by the EMTs. Put down the number of someone. We always call them the nosy neighbor or someone close by, because they won't leave the dog in the house unless they know someone answers the end of the phone and says, yes, I'm coming. I'll take care of Romeo.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know that, or they'll take the dog to animal care and control. And if you're unconscious, this happened during COVID. If you're unconscious on a ventilator and they call you to say, what do you want us to do with Romeo? Are you abandoning him? And you're not answering the phone because you're on a ventilator. They get put into a shelter after a certain number of days, and then they can be adopted, and then you'll never get them back, which is why it's really important to make sure you stop that trajectory if you can. I mean, you really need to make sure that doesn't happen. That we all should look for what the plans are, and then when the plans are implemented, see how they worked, and then make the plans better if we need to for whatever we find out didn't work. I think it's a great idea, because there has to be the ability to make a plan, just jump in there with both feet, do the best you can. And then, you know, when things happen, you do the best you can. You can't think of everything, because we think of things every week that we said, oh, we've been here for 3 years now, and there are still things we're thinking about, like tonight's discussion, that we haven't thought about for 3 years. So there's always something new. And so when you make a plan, I want to say floatability, but that's not the word I mean. The ability to make it fluid. That's the word I'm looking for. You have to make it fluid. You have to be able to know, well, if this doesn't work, this works. Or if that doesn't work, that works. Because I know Connie has a number of people who, if one person can't take her dog, there's another person. If that person can't, and they all know each other, because it really is superfluous to have 3 people to care for your pet if they don't know each other. Because then they don't know, oh God, I'm not home. I can't take care of Kathy's pets, but I can call Mary, and Mary will go take care of Kathy's pets, because I know that she knows how to take care of Kathy's pets too. So until the 1st of November, oh my God, I can't believe it's November. I wish you all a fabulous evening. Thank you all for coming. I hope I see you all again next month. And until next month, make sure you kiss Casey and Patsy, Romeo, Miss Gracie, and Miss Emma. The bad news bear, Miss oh God, Maggie. And then Jeffrey, I don't know your dog's name.
Maggie.
But I'm loving them. And then I'm loving them anyway. And Stephanie, Yoda gets a big hug from me too. Until next time, remember it's the first of the month. I think it's I have no idea. Because I have no calendar in front of me. I'm really terrible. I'm such a marketer. I'm so prepared for this.
It is November 1.
It is November 1. I will see you on November 1st, everyone. Take care. Kiss your babies.
Awesome.
Take care. Bye.